programming, it is often desired to execute certain block of statements for a specified number of times. With a loop, our program takes the same actions over and over again. Most loops follow a particular pattern. First, they make a variable, then they test that variable against a condition. When that test true, the loop runs. Next, the code change the variable and then see if the condition is still true for a second loop cycle. However, the number of repetition may not be known in advance during compile time or may be large enough to say some random number. The best solution to such problem is loop. Loops are used in programming to repeatedly execute a certain block of statements until some condition is met. In C Sharp, let's start with for loop. A for loop executes a statements or block of statements as long as a boolean condition is true. For does two more things. It also creates a loop variable before the loop begins and then updates that variable after each loop cycle. The for keyword is used to create for loop in C Sharp. Here are the few steps to remember. C Sharp for loop has three statements: initialization, condition, and iterator. The initialization statement is executed at first and only once. Here the variable is usually declared and initialized. Then the condition is evaluated. The condition is a boolean expression, that is, it returns either true or false. If the condition is evaluated to true, the statements inside the for loop are executed. Then the iterator statement is executed, which usually changes the value of the initialized variable. Again, the condition is evaluated. The process continues until the condition is evaluated to false. If the condition is evaluated to false, the for loop terminates. Code inside the loop executes. Inside the loop we have the console.write method print the current value of I. There is no more code after that, and so our program returns back to the for loop header. Then we use C increment operator to increase the loop variable with 1. The loop then checks its condition again because I is still under 10. So it's 1 now. The loop runs again. This continues until I become 10 and the loop condition test false. In the next loop, we are performing the same loop cycle, but the value is in decrementing form. So let's talk about while loops. But what if we don't know yet how long our loop should be? In those cases, we use a while loop where we don't know how long the loop should run. This loop executes a statement or block of statements as long as a boolean condition is true. When using the while loop, initialization should be done before the loop starts. An increment or decrement step should be inside the loop. A simple while loop is one that counts up to a certain value. Here in the main method we first make a string array named websites. We also declare the I loop variable and give it a default value of O. Then we make a loop with while. The loop continues as long as I is less than the number of elements in our array, which is websites.length. Inside the loop there is an if statement. Here we fetch an array element websites and then use the string contains method to see if the website name has the letter O. When that condition is true, code inside the if statement executes. There we have the console write line method print the website's name. This way we only output websites with an O in their name. This program first has the console write line method print an instructional message to the user. Then we make the input empty string variable. Next, a while loop evaluates if that input variable is different than not equal to stop. Because that variable is empty the first time, that condition tests true and code inside the loop runs. Then we update input to data fetched from the console window using console.writeLine method. We then repeat what the user said with console.writeLine method. To end the loop, the user has to type stop that updates the input variable to that string value, which then in turn makes the loop condition false. The do while loop is the same as while loop except that it executes the code block at least once. The do while loop starts with the do keyword followed by the code block and a boolean expression with a while keyword. The do while loop stops execution exits when a boolean condition evaluates to false. Because the while condition is specified at the end of the block, it certainly executes the code block at least once. Example do while loop. Specify initialization out of the loop and increment or decrement counter inside do while loop. Use break or return to exit from the do while loop. The do while loop can be used inside another do while loop. Easily iterate through a collection. We often have loops go through an array, list or dictionary and then do something with each value. That's in fact so common that C# has a special loop for it. The Foreach loop. Let's take a look. The Foreach loop sometimes calls Foreach loop or enhanced for loop elegantly loops through a collection. The essence of this loop is a loop variable. Each pass through the loop, the variable is set to an element from the collection we loop over. That way, for each automatically iterates through all items in a collection and examine each one in turn. That may not seem like much, but for each doesn't need index or the collection length. Instead, C# manages those things for us. Normally, we use for each loop when we have items in form of collections, sets, or groups, or in a list manner.